Warren Buffett was asked at Berkshire Hathaway's annual shareholder meeting about what would happen to Geico Insurance if Tesla's full self-driving succeeds. His answer was surprising, saying that if accidents get reduced by 50%, it's going to be bad for insurance companies' volumes, but good for society. Good for society is what we're looking for. Having said that, Berkshire had doubts that Geico would suffer as they still believe repair costs might offset. When Elon was told about this, he commented saying Warren should consider a position in Tesla stock. So how likely do you think it is for Buffett to buy Tesla stock? We've got one of the best people to ask that question to. It's Jeff Lutz. He's a previous chief supply chain officer for many Fortune 100 companies. And he knows how, the Buffett, he's been following him well. Of course, he knows the insurance issues that are to consider. And he has some very unique input about how Buffett should be thinking about this. Welcome, Jeff.
Hey, great to be with you, Herbert. Some fun topics today.
It's a good one. So Warren Buffett is always a big one. A lot of people asking, should he invest? Let's listen to him, though. He was at the annual shareholder meeting, and he was asked the question, right? What about Tesla? So let's watch this.
This question's for Warren and Ajit. It's from Jeff Oyster. As a Berkshire and Tesla shareholder, I would like to hear your thoughts on the potential financial effects to Geico, assuming Elon Musk delivers on his fully autonomous driving goal. On Tesla's most recent earnings call, Elon said, if you've got at scale a statistically significant amount of data that shows conclusively that the autonomous car has, let's say, half the accident rate of a human-driven car, I think that's difficult to ignore. Assuming Elon succeeds in reducing accidents by 50% versus human drivers, wouldn't auto insurance rates fall to reflect the reduced underwriting risk, thereby adversely impacting Geico's revenues and float and perhaps margins too?
Well, yeah, well, let's just take the extreme example. Let's say there are only going to be 3 accidents in the United States next year for some crazy reason that anything that reduces accidents is going to reduce costs, but that's been harder to do than people have done before. But obviously, if it really happens, the figures will show it, and our data will show it, and the prices will come down. There have been a lot of people talk about doing that in the past. I mean, General Motors used to be very big in the insurance business, and when Uber first started, they used some firm, which now is, I think, Ajit will confirm, they're close to bankruptcy now, aren't they, because of taking things on at the wrong prices? Is that true?
Yep.
Yeah. Insurance always looks easier than it is, and it's so much fun because you get the money at the start, and then you find out whether you've done something stupid later on. But it's a very tempting business when somebody hands you money and you hand them a little piece of paper. But really knowing whether if accidents get reduced 50%, it's going to be good for society, and it's going to be bad for insurance companies' volume. But good for society is what we're looking for. So far, this you might find kind of interesting. I mean, the number of people killed per 100 million passenger miles driven. I think it actually was when I was young, it was like 15, but even post-World War II, it only fell to like 7 or thereabouts. And Ralph Nader probably has done more for the American consumer than just about anybody in history, because that 7 or 6 has now come down to under 2, and I don't think it would have come down that way without him. There have been some kind of fluke figures of what people did during the pandemic, which are quite interesting, because they didn't drive immediately. They didn't drive as many miles, but they drove more dangerously, didn't they? Yep. Is that right, Ajit?
Yep. Yeah.
Let me pause there. What did you think about his comment? He seemed to be going all the way around, but at the end of the day, he said if it's good for society, if that's what we're looking for.
Yeah, it is. I think one of the things that could be missed is the amount of data that Tesla has in terms of how the behaviors of the driver. and the car is full of sensors, and there's data that Tesla is receiving back. That's part of our driving scores, and that was even the kind of the qualification to even get into the full self-driving beta originally. So Tesla is capturing a tremendous amount of data, and they understand when airbags are deployed or the vehicle's been in a collision, and they can correlate the two. So I wouldn't be betting against Tesla's insurance business, that's for sure. And like I've said in other broadcasts, I actually think the go-to-market scheme, at least on the consumer version of full self-driving beta, is going to be to bundle autonomous driving and insurance solutions, so you can actually give the driver a net reduction in costs and a much greater comfort, and you know, kind of this luxury of your car being able to drive yourself, and your insurance costs are meaningfully lower, and the two together mostly offset one another. And I think that's going to be part of the approach to going to market for insurance. So, and I think it's I think the statistics are there, and I think they're interesting. But I would venture to guess that there's some broad assumptions that are being made. Like, for example, repair costs are going up as these vehicles, contain more and more technology. Again, I would be careful to paint some of these things with a broad brush. There's some data that's just stone cold. There's definitely facts. There's definitely things that aren't going in the right direction in terms of repair costs. Inflation drives a lot of that, both on the labor side as well as the components themselves. And there is more technology in these cars, but Tesla's actually engineered these vehicles in terms of their autonomy solutions to be lowest cost. So if first off, the probability that you're going to be the cause of a collision are going to be greatly reduced once autonomy is used as a primary source of moving the vehicle throughout the world. By the way, that's very recent for Tesla. Before version 12, I would say the miles driven weren't going at the slope or the rate the Tesla Lightning. We saw that hockey stick that would happen with version 12, and of course the free trial is helping with that. But even my own situation, I probably went from 20 to 30% driving on FSD to probably 80 to 90% now, just because the software and the whole system is performing better. So I think there's a lot to take in here. But if you were to kind of step back and look at it from a 10,000 foot level, Warren knows he's got a little bit of time. There's a little bit of a slope here, where this isn't going to be a light switch overnight. It's going to take some time. The Tesla's got to get the miles, they got to get the performance improved and so forth. But as that happens, it could happen over the next year. I think it would be wise for him to be considering a hedge against some of his businesses. So there's AI work that's happening to improve insurance, and then of course there's AI just in self-driving. So there's some things that could definitely be attacking his core businesses. So he's got time to a little bit of time to work through this. But it could happen pretty quickly, but it's not going to be overnight.
Okay. So, yeah, let's talk about this, because at least he understands the big issue. He knows that at some point, if something happens to reduction of autonomy, then his insurance companies would be in trouble. But it looks like that the executives at Berkshire Hathaway is still pushing back. Let's just, before we talk about should they invest in Tesla, let's listen in to the final comments made by the executives at Geico about the repair costs, and then get your thoughts on that.
So the point I want to make in terms of Tesla and the fact that they feel that because of their technology, the number of accidents do come down. And that is certainly provable. But I think what needs to be factored in as well is the repair cost of each one of these accidents has skyrocketed. So if you multiply the number of accidents times the cost of each accident, I'm not sure that total number has come down as much as Tesla would like us to believe. Tesla has been toying with the idea of writing insurance directly or indirectly, and so far it hasn't really sort of been much of a success. Time will tell, but I think automation just shifts a lot of the expense from the operator to the equipment provider.
Okay, Jeff, comments on that?
Yeah, I mean, they're not equivalent factors, and this is something that's studied in multiple industries as well. Even the consumer electronics as well in terms of warranty claims. So you have the cost per repair, and you have the incident rate, and those are the two things that most companies drive lower. And that's one of the reasons you see a lot of the pieces. If you even look at the Cybertruck teardown, a lot of pieces are modular, can be pulled apart with the hands or with a small tool. Um, and Tesla is definitely working, and companies are working on cost per repair. The In the consumer electronics industry, there's a lot of legislation that's being driven globally. This right to repair movement, and in the right to repair movement, they're trying to move more of that autonomy to the consumer, so they have the ability to acquire the ability to repair their device and not have to pay half the device cost in the case of a consumer electronics to repair it, and which is pushing manufacturers to make their products more repairable. So you can't look at the point here, and I would respond to executives. You can't look at today's cost per repair and just extrapolate it and think it's going higher because there's self-driving computers and so forth in the vehicle. Those are very modular, by the way, and they're not as high as cost as people think. The self-driving computer and the compute, even the cameras, these get damaged on the outside of the vehicle. More of the cost is in the actual logistics in terms of moving these components around, but the components themselves aren't that expensive. So my takeaway is you can't just think that the cost per repair is going to go up in a straight line. It probably isn't. The smarter manufacturers are going to get more modular. By the way, one of the reasons, one of the things, one of the benefits of Unbox may be not only the modular assembly, but the modular repair process as well. So I know Tesla's thinking about repairability as they're also thinking about how to get the product together in record time with basically a low number of interactions in the factory. So my takeaway would be is you can't just extrapolate cost per repair going up forever. Tesla is going to have information and that incident rate. So if you can get the incident rate meaningfully lower, if you can cut the incident rate by 5 or 10x, and your cost per repair is flat or slightly up, I mean, the incident rate's going to win out. So it's let's see how this plays out. There's definite cause for them to be concerned and to keep an eye on this. But like I said, they've got a little bit of time and slope to kind of back out of this and hedge their bet.
Wow, Jeff. A Jeff Lutz gem. I had not heard this before. That's brilliant when you said that the unbox model could actually improve repairability as well because of the modular design. I have not heard anybody say that.
Yeah, I'm sure it
That is
can, and I'm
brilliant.
sure, and you can see
Makes
elements of
sense.
it in Cybertruck as well, in terms of when you see the teardown, some
Yeah.
of the access that they have that they didn't have before.
Jeff Lutz gem. Okay, that's another one. I should keep track of them. There's so many. Thank you, Jeff. Okay, so let's continue this. So Omar sent this out saying, "Good morning, Tesla FSD users. I estimate Tesla has now crossed 1.5 billion FSD miles and will hit 2 billion before the annual meeting. The reason why this matters is we were just talking about saving fatalities and the cost for insurance, all that. Let's see how likely that really is in the magnitude. So getting to 1 billion FSD miles took more than 3 years. Getting to 2 billion miles will take less than 3 months. This question of how many billions of miles are being driven right now seems to have shot up, and we'll see if it continues to go up. Compute is adding like crazy. We're reaching escape velocity." Then he said this is now preventing 7 crashes per day. This is supervised FSD, just the way it is now, 7 crashes per day. This includes 11 expected human crashes that were prevented, minus 4 crashes per day where FSD was on. Sawyer says that 15 million miles per day, that's 1 life saved every week. 1.35 actually. Wow. I love this analysis that they just did, and I hope that it's correct. One person's life is possibly being saved every week now with just FSD, supervised FSD, with just the beta testers. What's your consideration of this?
Yeah, it's hard to fathom. You can't put a price on it. I mean, if you look at it, maybe a 7-week view between now and I guess the shareholders meetings in probably 5 or 6 weeks. But if you look back last week and had a couple weeks together, 6-7 weeks, you're talking about 10 people that are, walking the earth that wouldn't be. I don't know how you even fathom or put a price tag on that. The 7 crashes per day, it's 50 crashes per week. Just there's a lot of stress involved when you're in an accident. There's obviously cost, there's inconvenience. So it has a lot of impact on society. So this is going to get solved. Driving is going to get solved. I liken it to many things that are done in an automated manner today that were manual, 50 or 100 years ago. It's going to be solved. And the question is how and what the cost structure is and kind of what that path is. So yeah, you can't put a price tag on any of this. This rate of miles and improvement, and it's kind of feeding this flywheel, as Omar says, where you're reaching escape velocity of miles in. You've got compute ramping up, and then you have the two together. You have the brains of the system, the intelligence of the system are improving rapidly. So I'm driving the latest release. I'm extremely impressed by it. There are still open issues. I mean, everybody should be very clear. This isn't set it and jump in the back seat kind of thing, nor is that legal, by the way. So there's still more work to do. Everybody thought there would still be more work to do on May 7th or 6th. So that's not a surprise. I think what is going to be surprising is the rate of improvement. And we should all get excited based on when 12.4 actually, when they have a major point release come out, and if it's trained with a new model with more compute, and we see gigantic improvement or significant functionality added or both, I think that's the time to get really, really excited, because that will portend like what the next couple of months will show. So watch out for the next release, and especially the release where Tesla says that they're not compute constrained, and they have the ability to build and train and build that release on an unconstrained compute model. That for me would be very excited to experience that.
I love what you just said there. What I think the fun part of the conversation now is whether or not Warren Buffett should invest in Tesla. Elon actually commented on this. I sent a note, a post, got 66,000 views at this point, just very early. And I think over 160 people commented. Almost every single one of them said, no, Buffett's not going to invest. I have a different opinion. So let's take a look at how this all started. We've got Gali saying, come on, Warren Buffett, sell all your Apple and buy Tesla, because he actually started to sell Apple. It looks like the Buffett is trying to stock up on cash, worried about potentially what might happen in the future. And he said something like, I don't see anything that's worth buying right now. And he's a little afraid. So Elon said this, he should take a position in Tesla. It's an obvious move. And then you said to start as a hedge on his oil and gas insurance holdings and increase over time an option value of FSD, Robotaxi, and Bot. Go ahead and explain what you're saying there.
Yeah, I mean, if you just look at their stats out, I'll send a tweet out or post out later. I think gas consumption in China and in the U.S. may have peaked. We'll see, but certainly over the last couple of years, there's some stats out there that show that's happening, and a lot of that is related to the ramp up of EVs. So you have that. You have what's going on in insurance, and just Tesla Energy as well, because I know he's into a lot of. He's on the utility side as well. So if you look at his holdings and you look at what's happening in terms of Elon's companies, it would make sense for him. I see some of these posts, and they're kind of cute or funny about, hey, sell all your Apple, go all in. It's a good one-liner. I don't think that's the way he's thinking. I think he sees safety in Apple. He sees 100 and the world's biggest buyback in corporate history, just executed $110 billion. So he likes all that. So he's not going to go full scale in one direction or another, but he could start a hedge. And that's how you would start. You would start, kind of a smaller percentage of your portfolio. So as these things, like I said, they're not going to like shut off like a light switch overnight, but they could decline at some reasonable slope. And so the insurance, when I'm thinking the insurance business, obviously, and then some of the other things, on oil and gas and energy. So if he could start a smaller like percentage hedge in Tesla, that may be the way as those things gradually decline and he gradually takes his hedge on the Tesla side. That may be the smarter approach for him to do that. Now, there's all kinds of other reasons why, based on his investing philosophy, why he wouldn't invest in Tesla, but you never know. And he could change his philosophy. And there's also, leadership changes that are obviously happening in his company. So yeah, I think the approach as a hedge, and I think it could be easily explainable, to him, to his investors as well. Like, this is why I'm doing it.
Okay. I mean, yeah, the answer most people are saying is no, right? He's not likely going to invest. I like the way you've positioned that, which makes sense because you saw in the previous clips that we watched, he understands that if autonomy happens, then insurance's volume is going to go down. It's good for society. But he also kind of, threw out some, it's not likely going to happen. And then his lieutenant said repair costs going to go up, which is, it doesn't make sense that that's actually going to even match what's going to happen here. But I think that he might, right? And the reason is you got to remember that 2012, everybody said there's no way Warren Buffett's going to invest in Apple. He's very clearly said, I would never do technology. I only invest in companies that I understand. Then he did it. Now, at that time, I think people were saying that it was actually his lieutenants that convinced them to do it. And he did it because of the tremendous amount of cash that they had, $120 billion of sitting cash. I think Tim Cook called him and actually had a conversation with him about this. And then it was when he got confirmation that they were going to do cash buybacks. I think that was my guess of why he ended up doing this. And that's exactly what happened. Apple did massive cash buybacks. I saw a stat recently that the cash buybacks by Apple is almost equivalent to the Fortune 500. 75% of Fortune 500. That's how much that they bought back. So Tesla has $30 billion of cash. They're about to get cash rich with, you can see how much money they're going to make in the next several years. Obviously, on the other side, you have a very volatile scenario, volatile CEO, competitive market, all those kind of things. And he's not one, Buffett, to bet on option plays. He wants to see a sure thing, right? So I get that, but I can also see that, he's done things before that he said he'll never do.
Yeah, I think the only difference is there's things to come, like with Tesla. First off, they've done an amazing thing with starting the EV industry and making it mainstream, starting battery electric storage and kind of making that mainstream. I know there's other players in that, obviously, but and of course what they're doing all the time. But some of these things are now things to come, whether it's bots, whether it's full autonomy. And I don't know if I'm not seeing a situation Warren style where he's like, okay, this is to come, and if it's more of like when it's there and it hits and it's stable, then he goes in. So I think there's arguments on both sides. But again, if I were there, I would certainly be looking at it as a small hedge. You'd start small. You wouldn't, make some, gigantic, massive position, but small for him could be easily $10 billion. So,
yeah.
So we'll see what happens. Like I said, my approach would be as a hedge against everything else that's going on in his businesses.
It actually makes a lot of sense. Okay, we'll see. Thank you so much, Jeff. Follow him on X. You can see that he has very different kinds of thoughts and thinking of an approach of how everybody else sees things. Follow him on X at the Jeff Lutz. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Bye. Thanks, Herbert.
I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.